So, Frostpunk is a pretty good game, huh? But I've always wondered if it was possible to beat it without having to, pass a purpose law. For the longest time, this seemed impossible without half your city dying to the storm. But recently, I found out a way where not only is it possible for you to never have to pass a single purpose law to win the game, but you can also get the Golden Path achievement alongside it, which is considered to be one of the hardest achievements to get in Frostpunk. So, how do you do it? Well, before we can get into how to do it, we need to first understand what conditions we need to meet in order to actually win this challenge. First of all, we need to win the New Home scenario without passing a single purpose law. We also have to get the Golden Path achievement alongside it, which means that no one can die, and that we cannot pass any laws that cross the line. We also have to fulfill any request that we get, which means that if we get an event about a lack of housing, we have to build housing for everyone. So what will be the major problems with this run that we're going to have to encounter? Well, first of all, hope is going to be in short supply, which makes the Londoner arc and the Storm arc of the New Home scenario difficult to work through. We also can't ever use emergency shifts, or use a law that might cause a death. Other than that though, there really aren't any problems with this run, and in all honesty, this challenge isn't actually that difficult once you know what you're doing. So what are your opening moves? Well, you're going to want to sign these laws in this order. You're going to want to first sign in Emergency Shift, then Extended Shift, then Food Additives, and then Radical Treatment, and finally Overcrowding. We do it in this order so we can extract as much resources as possible using extended shifts, and also generate hope from it. We can also stretch out our food supply for the first week using food additives, and basically we fix any healthcare problems in the early game with overcrowding. Once you've signed in all of these laws, don't bother signing in any more laws. You'll need to save them for the Londoners. As for what you need to build, you should try to get 2 gathering posts on the relevant resource piles as soon as possible, even if that means that you won't have any houses for anyone for the first couple nights. You should also have a workshop built and manned with an extended shift by the end of day 2, and have a cookhouse by day 3 alongside with a sawmill. You'll also want to research the beacon deck as soon as possible and send out a scout to the scattered convoy. Once your scouts have rescued the missing convoy, rush to Winterhome as soon as possible, since if you don't scout it before day 15, you will receive a death. While your scouts are rushing to Winterhome, you should have gotten a second scout out and set up at least 2 steel mills alongside of a wall drill in order to fix your early game resource shortages. You'll also want to have about 2 coal steam mines and 2 hunters huts in order to not starve and deal with the coal shortage in the early game. You'll also want to have researched steam hubs and heaters in order to finish off the early game temperature drops. Once the scout reaches Winterhome and discovers what happened, the Londoner arc will begin. As soon as it does, the game will try to force you to pick a purpose path. When this happens, just pick one of the paths, but don't sign any laws. Instead, exit out, go to adaptation, and sign in child shelters. Due to the lack of hope that we're going to be having throughout this game, child shelters will be used in order to supplement that lack of hope. So, once you've signed in the law, always make sure that you have enough child shelters for every single child in your city in order to maximize the amount of hope you can get from them. Once you've signed that law in, you'll want to sign the rest of the laws in this order. Cemeteries first, then care homes, then fighting arenas, and then the public house. The rest of the laws you can just sign in whenever you want. The hope you get from all these laws should be enough to last for the Londoners, but if it isn't, there is another way to generate hope, and that's through extended shifts. When you have extended shifts in a workplace for days on end, you'll likely get the Long Hours of Toil event, where if you accept and meet their demands, you'll gain some hope. This is the only sustainable way in a non-purpose run that you can gain permanent hope without having to sacrifice your city's health. There will be other events that pop up during the Londoner arc that you won't be able to properly respond to due to the fact that you don't have any peacekeepers or any purpose laws. But so long as you keep hope up enough, you should be able to easily make it through the Londoner arc with only around 20 Londoners left by the end of it. When they try to leave the city, make sure to equip them for the journey, and that's going to be it for the Londoner arc. After that, everything will be roughly pretty easy for the rest of the game. By the end of the London arc, by the way, you should have upgraded your scouts completely and have scouted every single location in the game. You should also have 2 outposts, one in Tesla City and one in the Icebound Dreadnought. You also should have flying hunters by this point, as well as generator power 2 and upgraded heaters. And one last thing, by the end of the Londoner arc, you should have upgraded your tents directly into houses. Don't even bother building bunkhouses, they're useless. After the end of the Londoner arc, the Refugee arc should start in a couple days, and in order for you to get the Golden Path achievement, you'll need to accept all of the refugees. So, it's during this time that you'll need to quickly build up your city in order to handle them. This means at least 4 infirmaries, and fully upgraded steel and wall drills, and 3 advanced coal mines. You'll need all of this in order to treat and fully house all the refugees that will come in. By this point, you should have about 3/4 of the tech tree researched, by the way. This is also a good stopping point to see how well you're doing in your run. If you can't accommodate all the refugees without someone potentially dying, you should restart your run from scratch and try again. Overall, there isn't much you actually have to do during this arc. It's really the next step where things will begin to heat up. Or should I say, cool down. It's the fucking worst joke ever. When you've accepted all of the refugee groups, you'll quickly receive an event telling you about the coming storm. As soon as that happens, immediately send out all your scouts in order to scout out and rescue all the locations that have been revealed to you. You want to scout these locations out in order to rescue people, but to also get some free technologies. You'll also want to immediately start researching the lens tech along with generator power upgrade 3 and level 3 heaters. You'll also want to research overdrive couplings and all of the healthcare insulation tech. Trust me, you'll need it. Don't bother researching house insulation and generator safety bypass since you'll get these techs for free for your scouts. You'll also want to double your number of flying hunters and build 4 cookhouses, since you'll need to rapidly increase your food production in order to build up a big enough stockpile for the storm. Also, you'll need to recall your outpost team soon, so wait until the location behind them is frozen in order to evacuate them. If you don't, they'll die and you won't get the achievement. If you have 3 scouts and all the movement bonuses from techs, you should be able to scout out all of the new locations well before the storm hits. And once you do, make sure to recall your scouts and to disband them. Also, you're going to want to build as many infirmaries as possible, but make sure to always keep 1 steam core handy. You'll need it later. The last few days before the storm hits will be flooded with events that you as a non-purpose law player will not have good options to deal with them. So, when the cooks begin to steal food, don't banish them and just deal with it. They'll give you a 50% reduction in the efficiency of cookhouses, but that's why we built 4 of them in the first place. When the city demands wood to heat their houses, give it to them. Also, you'll want to research all the charcoal tech by this point and all the coal thumper and gathering post tech. When the storm hits, by the way, the temperature will begin to drop dramatically, so be prepared for that. You'll also get an event midway through the storm, talking about problems with the coal mines. As the storm progresses, you'll be faced with the choice of sending down 10 volunteers or having an 80% reduction in the efficiency of coal mines. Take the reduction in the coal mines, because if you send out the volunteers, they will die. If you need to supplement your coal supply, use charcoal kilns since they're actually quite effective. If you don't send volunteers down into the mines, you'll also get an event where the citizens will demand for you to build some coal thumpers. Accept their demand, build the coal thumpers, and man them for 2 seconds until you just switch over to charcoal kilns. Once the second to last part of the storm hits you, you can start using the generator overdrive. And once it hits negative 150 degrees Celsius, you have to use the generator overdrive. If the generator is about to blow, you can always use your final steam core to reset it to 50% and continue using the overdrive until you finish getting through the storm. And if you do everything correctly, you should have finished the game without any deaths, with all locations scouted and everyone saved, as well as getting the Golden Path achievement. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't the Londoners leaving count as deaths? Turns out, no, at least if you equip them for the journey. I do have something else I wanted to add though, and it's a bit of a funny point. If you watch the final cutscene of Frostpunk, it usually talks about all the terrible, shitty things you did to your citizens in order to survive. But because you never signed in any purpose laws, for large parts of the cutscene, no text will appear, because it literally has nothing to say. And then it will end with a, but I think we didn't cross the line. Like, come on, really? Really? Is that even a question you had to ask? Anyways, with that cutscene out of the way, I have to say that the strategy took a while to figure it out, since there were basically no resources online on how to do such a run, which is surprising, since I thought DDDR Jake would have made a challenge video on it, because compared to all the things he's done, this challenge is actually pretty easy. Also, one last thing to keep in mind is that as far as I know, this can only be done in normal mode. There would be a lot of problems that you would encounter if you tried to do this in the Bruto mode. Also, as far as I know, there is no way to make it so that none of the Londoners leave. I have tried multiple ways to try to find a way to stop them, even trying to exploit the speech events, but it seems like it's impossible to stop at least 20 people from leaving. Lucky for us though, it still doesn't stop you from getting the Golden Path achievement. But yeah, that was my video. I hope it was helpful and that you guys can now complete the true Golden Path achievement run. That's what I'm calling this challenge run, since it feels a bit better, because the true Golden Path is not having to become a dictator in any way. Oh, and if you wanted to look at some more tips that I couldn't really include in the main video, but are still important to any run, there's going to be a list of them at the very end of the video that you can read through. So hopefully that's also going to be helpful to you. Anyways, this has been me, Kay, and I'm just gonna head out now. Man, why is it so cold recently?